Okay, so today we're going to take a look at virtue ethics according to the philosopher Aristotle. So first, a little bit about Aristotle. Aristotle was a student of the great philosopher Plato, and he became one of the greatest philosophers of all time. He wrote on virtually every topic imaginable, from physics to metaphysics to ethics to biological sciences, etc., etc., etc. He was also a tutor to Alexander the Great, and he becomes so influential, especially in the High Middle Ages, that Thomas Aquinas, the great Catholic theologian, calls him the philosopher, capital P. So if you're ever reading Aquinas and you see a reference to the philosopher, this is who they're talking about. Now, we're going to talk mostly about the ethics today. Aristotle's most famous work, or one of his most famous works, is the Nicomachean Ethics. And it was a book that was written for Aristotle's son, Nicomachus, to explain goodness and to try to give him some guidance for action in the world. Now, one thing that you need to know when trying to understand Aristotle's morality or his philosophy in general is the idea of teleology. Teleology is the belief that everything that exists has a purpose or goal. And so when Aristotle looked at the natural world, he saw that a lot of things in the natural world seemed to go, toward a particular goal or purpose. So for example, if you see an acorn and you plant that acorn into the ground, then it's it's going to grow into an oak tree. It's not like if you plant the acorn into the ground, it's going to be an elephant or a rhinoceros or a B-52. It will grow into an oak tree. And so the oak tree is the telos, or the purpose of the acorn. In essence, the acorn has a map inside it that helps it to grow into that oak tree. And we'd call that DNA today. Now the big question is, if the acorn's purpose is to grow into an oak tree, what is the purpose of a human being? Now that is a really good question, and that's a question that a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to answer. And Aristotle basically looked at all the things we do as humans, and he came to one conclusion. He said the reason we do all the things we do, from going to work to going to school to doing our leisure activities and things like that, is because we want to be happy. Happiness. That is the ultimate goal of human life. Then the big question comes in: how do we achieve happiness? And so we go back to Gaiji's ring, which we talked about a little before. Can we achieve lasting, true happiness through power, money, and fame? Can we do that? Well, Aristotle would say no. He would say that lasting happiness can only be achieved through virtue. Now, there's a reason for this. Aristotle suggests that virtue is something that we're meant to do as human beings. He says if you really think about it, if your rational mind is at work, then your reason will lead you to do virtue. It's only when you allow your reason to be corrupted by your emotions or your appetites that you will allow yourself to do things that are not virtuous. So for example, my reason tells me that I ought to be courageous. I ought to stand up in defense of myself and my family. But if I fear, if I've got that emotion of fear, that appetite of fear inside of me, then that's going to keep me from being courageous. And so Aristotle would say we need to follow our reason and not allow our appetites to sway us in either direction. Another good example of this: I know that it would be a good idea for me to, eat a salad, a chicken salad, right? I've always needed to lose a little weight, so I want to eat a chicken salad instead of driving into the drive-thru at Wendy's and getting a Baconator. That Baconator's huge. It's got like 4 patties and 16 slices of bacon and whatever. And it looks awesome, and I really want it, right? But I know that Baconator is not good for me. And so instead of driving into that drive-thru, if my reason is working correctly, I will practice virtue, and I'll drive past and eat something healthy. But sometimes that emotion, that drive, right, it causes me to drive into that drive-thru instead, and then I'm doing something that's not good for me and that's not healthy. And so Aristotle says the key to human life and the key to happiness is the practice of virtue, because virtue is in accord with human reason. And that's Aristotle's philosophy in a nutshell.